just about be live. So yeah, people will be joining. So I should explain. I did a live session this morning. So some people will be a bit sort of freaked out. Why is Simon doing 2 live sessions? This morning I reached out to you and said, hey, no chance you're available, and you had plans for today, but you did mention that you've got some interesting news for us. So
yeah,
kind of interested in that, if you can talk about it. I don't know if you can or
sure.
not.
No, I feel like I can. I don't know why not. Just to back up and give your audience just a little bit of background. I feel like you and I have been in this DV 2022 litigation part of it since maybe just even late December, maybe early January.
Early January,
And,
yeah.
when we recognized that there was something wrong, whether it was KCC not getting appointments out to posts or posts not asking for them, something was wrong. And we had brought a case, and we certainly saw that there was a problem in Sydney. And I ended up with 134 people over 2 cases. One case is called Husu after a plaintiff who's still a plaintiff, and one was Preston, and that was a Sydney case. I think at the end of the day, I think we had about 125 or 27 of them. And I think the whole year, what's unique about DB 2022 is after we filed in February, and I'm not claiming credit for it, but after February, when we pulled the trigger and sued, and others did as well, the level of interviews worldwide just hockey sticked. And what I mean by that, it just went right up. But we still couldn't figure out the methodology of how they were doing it. And it was BS, and people were screaming, and then it was the visa bulletin, and now we've come full circle, and now there's not enough visas and people in AP jail, and we can maybe talk about that later. But one of the things that I'm really proud of, honestly, about just as a litigator, and I know I still have 19 people left out of 134 that I haven't won for yet, and that's disappointing for me personally, but and for them. But one of the things we were able to do is kind of a new tactic for DV, and we filed in Kentucky, is we were able to get discovery, and filing early allowed us to get discovery. And one of the things we really wanted to look at, and one of the things that I thought always was a problem, was how are they, even within posts, how are they getting people who's first, right? Mm-hmm. Who's first, who's second? And the government tried to dismiss our case, and they always do that, right? We knew they were going to do that. And they had the director of the KCC, Morgan Miles, and he says, right, we are scheduling people at post just by their regional rank number, right? And that's consistent with how I read the regulation. There's a specific regulation that talks about it. And there are federal cases going back since 2012. In fact, there's a case where Clinton is the defendant. And I think it's Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State. And it's, we go by regional rank number. Okay, fine. I'll take him at that. But one of the things we're able to do is sit down with Morgan Miles and have a discussion with him, because I could see from our pool of plaintiffs that could not be the way they were doing it.
Right.
And I asked him a bunch of questions in a deposition. Okay. Now, I'm not going to get into what was said there. Don't have to, because after that deposition, right around the time in our case and other cases we're moving for a final judgment or summary judgment, they came out and issued an errata, which is a new declaration, and they wanted to change the story a little bit, because I think what happened was this. I think we started asking some tough questions and giving them some hard data, and I gave them a credit to my plaintiffs, a credit to my clients. My clients are smarter than I am, thank God. They knew, because I was telling them, hey, it's by rank order. And they're like, oh, no, look, I can tell you it's not. Look at me, look at this. And I gave it to the government. And we started to actually email KCC about being skipped. And then they came back with this errata. And it turns out, and it's about as ambiguous as it can be in that errata, in the declaration from Morgan Miles, but it's certainly not by number in regional code. They have this system, it's a software system, and there was just a new story. Okay.
Right.
Now, in our case, what we've tried to do is not only strike their ability to change what they said, but that's important. But if you take them at their word, their latest one, and you actually look at what it means is, I can tell you it's by AV date. That's
the date how you moved into the AV.
The date you're moved where an allocated visa is, and they have a specific date. And so they filed for their own motion for summary judgment this week, and we did as well. And they put it a list, and I've done the data, I've just looked at it and I've talked to my plaintiffs about it. I can tell you it's by AV date, every single one, because we have plaintiffs, I think, unfortunately, we have a number of plaintiffs left in Accra and Addis. And so we can do a little bit of comparing. And let's say I have a client who's AF 42,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If he or she were moved into AV in February,
mm-hmm.
and if you had another client who was AF 13,000, and that person was put into AV status in April,
mm-hmm.
AV 42,000 is well ahead, like hundreds of people ahead.
Right.
And I can tell you also that regional code is also not really a factor, because I just so happen to have two people. I have two people who, they say.
I know, but it's nuts. I mean,
and they go alphabetically, right? So if you have AF,
that's better than AS. Better than EU. I mean, how would they justify that?
But that's what they say. And if you're going to go before a federal judge, you should probably be honest. And I can tell you, I have two plaintiffs that just so happen to they moved to AV date right around the same time. Okay. And so you would expect, if they were being honest, AS would be ahead of EU.
Right.
But it's not.
Right.
It's EU. It's not by ASEU. It's actually
So the regional one is obviously bullshit, because so for example, if you look at Islamabad, I've got this guy who today and previously has told me about 4 AF cases in Islamabad that keep getting skipped. Well, if it's regional alphabetical ordering, then AF would be before all the AS, and that's clearly not happening.
Yeah.
And so AS seems to be their preference in Islamabad because it's local, because it's an AS regional consulate. Maybe. Well, okay, tell us that. But, stop giving us this bullshit that, without this proper sort of explanation.
I would love to. I don't know that specific situation, but I've heard about those 4 AF cases that happened. But I would love to see when they were allocated a visa, meaning they became AV status.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, what's crazy too, another thing I can tell is that AV status, you would think if you're going to allocate someone a visa, because they've told me this, that they can't allocate someone a visa until they're current. Well, I have a number of people who are AV prior to the visa bulletin being current for them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
that's another absolutely very clearly bullshit statement, that allocated visa is the meaning of AV. That actually is not true. It can't possibly be true, because they've got 40,000 people in AV status right now, and they've either issued or allocated interviews to well over 50,000. So how the hell have they gone to 90,000 AV people? It's impossible.
And I think what happened is, I think they just designed a software system that is called DVIS or DVIS. And they didn't do it faithfully to the regulation and their longstanding practice, because they did it by, I think, AV status is when they've actually processed. And in
my mind, it's essentially what DQ was.
Yeah.
There are three statuses. One is Doc C, one's Doc Q, one's AV. There's also what is it, FV or something, which is sort of I'm ready to become AV if my case is current, right?
Yeah.
But the Doc C and the Doc Q, all of those statuses effectively are okay. You've been documentarily qualified, but when they gave us that earlier series of declarations in various lawsuits where they said it's on case number, I made a video then saying it clearly isn't just on case number. There's clearly some sort of bullshit there because you can't just make the case it's case number. There has to be some process that moves cases into AV status from whatever previous status there was. And the government can decide when to pull that trigger. How does that trigger happen? Is that automatic? It's like totally arbitrary when they move your case into AV, right?
And here's where I'm gonna just pretend I know about how software systems work, but this is the tweak that they need to make that they didn't make is this. You can start a queue based on AV. And this was my understanding, and this was actually the director of the Kentucky Consular Center's understanding, is it reshuffles because it has to go by region. It has to go by regional rank number, but it doesn't.
It doesn't.
You're locked in.
Yeah.
There's no. So if you're AV and you just happen to be AF 42,000, and you're at a post, and you happen to get AV early, your number means nothing. It's when you get to that. It's when you hold your place. And so that's that. Now listen, some people are going to say, "Hey, that's great. I got a high number." But the way I see it is this: number one, stop changing your story. Number two, there actually is a regulation that is supposed to. The reason there are regulations is so people actually have an understanding of how the process works. Because if everybody's not guaranteed a visa, everyone should at least be guaranteed the process is followed. So
fairness,
so my case at this point, not to talk too much about it, but I think it's how most cases are shaping up, because the Department of State is throwing themselves a parade because they're actually going to do, and to their credit, it's good. It's about as great as I've seen looking through at the historical data. They're going to do maybe 50 issuances.
Oh, they're doing more than 50.
Yeah. And I think that's also, and again, I think it's a credit to what you've done to highlight the errors. I think it's a highlight to some of the lawyers who've litigated in this space, nonprofits who've been pumping tweets and exposing them. I do believe it's because of that. However, I think one of the things they have failed to do is stop certain posts who are still doing a 4-tier. And honestly, I feel like I have that proof as well, because the government submitted declarations in our case from every consular, I guess, immigrant visa officer, whatever their name is. And you have the person from like Ankara who can give you specific facts about, hey, this is our capacity. We are pumping as fast as we can.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the person from like Addis from Accra. That's probably one of the better ones, who says, we're just focusing on the immigrant immediate family. And if we can do a couple, we'll do them. Now, Accra's done about 100 and a little bit more than 150 issuances the entire year. Okay. Yeah. 3 years ago, they did like 700. Yeah. Okay. And so, that.
And the 700 is only that low because of the high refusal rate.
Yeah.
Like in reality, they had interviewed many, many more than the 700, some years ago.
And so when I think people are now looking, I know we're getting to this crazy time and people are yelling about lawsuits and doing this. And I've told people, like, I said the only ones I would even consider, because I'm just doing the math and doing the data, is if you were in Addis, if you were in Accra, I think you have some type of some ground. I really do, because I do think those people were frozen out of the system this year. And unfortunately, nobody was there to correct. Like take Sydney, right? And I know maybe everyone has heard me tell this, but I'll say it again because I think it's an accomplishment for both sides. I think this is the type of settlement that I wanted when I was out here pumping settlements, which was, hey, if you're not going to let them do Sydney, give them a second choice.
Right.
And they did that. They let them go to Suva, and they'll never admit it is because of our pressure, but they did it. And then Sydney came around and took care of the rest because I had people who couldn't afford to go to Suva who stayed, and they were wrapped up because Sydney actually came online at some point.
But Suva had taken care of 250 people, prior, thank God. Otherwise, there'd have been no chance that Sydney could have handled them all.
And what was amazing, and you know this, but like what was amazing is they were letting people pick their dates.
Yeah, Suva were.
And then they were working with the medical facility. They were working with the medical. So it's an example that honestly should be looked at as a case study.
Absolutely. They were working with people, like people were saying, okay, but I want to get back to Australia as quickly as possible because I'm starting work. Can I pick up my visa the next day, and or can I pick it up tonight? And they'd say, no, not tonight, but tomorrow. Yeah, 24-hour turnaround on printed visa. They were amazing. Honestly, we need to send Suva a little gift or something.
Unbelievable. I mean, it was, and I don't want to say that the clients should have had to have paid the cost, but ultimately the mission was interview. And and I think that was where the government looked at viable options and took one for people in certain African countries, especially. I think it's like catastrophic, and the math doesn't lie. Like I've always started with the math in this case and the data because I thought that's where the case, I was championing like, hey, it has to be a 9% DV to immigrant visa rate or we have problems. Yeah. Well, they're going to do that worldwide. Okay. Yeah. So I don't have that leg to stand on, but But if you're going to tell me that it's okay, or I use a standard of good faith, that was what Judge Mehta originally used. If you think it's okay to interview 3 to 5% of all people in Accra or I have problems with that. I really do.
They've got nowhere near. No, they just they added 39 people for September, 39 cases in Accra. But
and I'll tell you, for Adiz and they did wrap up some of my clients who had very low. I'm talking like 2,000,
right?
But we have plenty of more people who unfortunately tried to transfer and couldn't, right. Or because I told everyone, I said if you try to get out, or I told them not. One of the things that people were doing, and I did have a problem with, because I told them I don't know the transfer game, is going first and then trying to transfer.
Right.
I know people did it, and I know people did it successfully, but I thought that was, I just didn't have the knowledge to tell people how to do that.
Right.
So yeah, that's our case. We're going to get a decision here in September. And I'll tell you what's funny. And again, I don't mean to disparage the government attorneys at all, really. I think they have a job to do, and I have a job to do. But I have I have been saying, we have 19 people left. You've obviously taken care of a lot of people, and even the judge said it. We had like a status hearing. The judge said, "There's a lot of people who've been." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "We only have 19 left. It'd be great if we could just close the book here." And the response was, "Well, they're not in line." And I'm like, "Oh my God. This is the case. This is what we're talking about. Like, what do you mean? Like the line is broken. Like there was no, that's the whole, I tried to tell you this. I'm trying to it's not like we're hiding the ball. It's funny because everybody, this is like one of the few cases where everybody agrees, these are the facts. And I'm like, I know. And they're like, no, you look over here, look at the number. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand.
You did that. Yeah, that's right.
But,
dear. Frustrating case.
Should we talk about the level of AP and what we need to do there, or what questions do you have?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about AP.
So AP is, AP is a massive problem outside DV world, right? And it's kind of like what we saw with back in the day, travel bans, immigrant bans, and you could get a waiver, and all waivers had to be thrown through Washington, D.C., and talking about an understaffed office and background checks and security checks. Well, now the way they use these 5535s, I don't think it's discriminatory, but I think it's like when you fly on a plane and you go for like extra security and they just, it's no rhyme or reason to it. There's just like a quota or something. Because I've seen the spouses of executives on high skilled or like managerial visas, and the husband goes through who has traveled to 14 countries, and the wife who stayed with the children in New York gets a 5535 and put in AP.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about 5535, so 5535 is a form. It asks you basically where you've lived, where you've been, what names you've used, and it's really no matter how quick you turn it around, it's causing these extra delays. And for people, for diversity visa folks, I mean, they turn into pumpkins on October 1, meaning they're out of luck. You cannot get a decision after September 30th at midnight.
Yeah. And so I got a little background on 5535s because I remember when they were introduced and what was going on at the time. At that time, so obviously, you may or may not know the DS260 was enhanced a few years ago with social media questions, and the DS5535 had been introduced by Trump or Trump's administration, and it was clearly a sort of an attempt to sort of get more information from probably Middle Eastern countries and that sort of thing. But then after the DS260 was introduced and the social media questions were now on there, there were people who had a DS260 in flight, as it were, and without the social media questions being answered. They were blank because they had been added after the person had submitted the form. So those people were almost universally asked to fill out a DS5535 because there were additional questions that needed to be answered, right? And so I was advising people at that time, and I think it was 2018, to reopen their DS260 and answer the questions that were now on their form that weren't there before, because that would reduce the chances of 5535s. And that seemed to work. That seemed to work. Now, there are several consulates, Iranians, for example, have always had AP. This is the point I was trying to get Curtis. They've always had AP. I can point back to historical posts I made back in 2014, 2013, where I'm talking about how long it takes, for Iranians to go through AP. That's not about the 5535. But the 5535 has added on top of that risk, right? So for Iranians, they're either going to go through normal AP or they'll have 5535 AP. If you're in Montreal, for Christ's sake, I mean, if you're in Montreal, you're likely to get a 5535. If you're in Johannesburg, you're likely to get a 5535. Yeah. So what's weird now is that it's almost like a post-level decision, along with some guidance. Like, okay, I can understand if they said, look, we're concerned about anyone's travel history and work history, social media history, if they've traveled in the Middle East or if they come from Iran or from this country. I could understand that. What I don't understand is someone who is literally born in Canada, and we're not talking about DV cases, but they're born in Canada. They've never traveled anywhere else except the USA, and they get a 5535. What the hell is that about?
Oh, I'm telling you, like the client example I gave you, the woman was from France. They were going through the Paris post. The husband and 2 kids get sent in, and this guy's a high-level exec, and she gets trapped in AP for like 3 months. And it's like, what are you doing? It doesn't make any sense, but it's happening. And so I use that to say this is not a DV specific problem. What is DV specific is we have a deadline, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know what they're going to do. And maybe that's why I don't want to say they're over scheduling, but they're scheduling more than they could issue.
Now, on that point, that's a very important point. I did the numbers, and over the last couple of days, I posted some videos on this. So they've issued 31.3K to date, 31,350 if issued. they've scheduled in August and September nearly 25,000 people. So they're at the point, if you just look at the scheduled, which should all have it scheduled, should always have the visas allocated at the point they're being scheduled, not the AV point, but at the point they're being scheduled. So I think that 25,000, I think actually is the difference between the 31.3 and the 54,850 or 55,000. And so I think that if we did the math, if we had the precise math on how many cases they've scheduled, I don't believe they've gone over. I don't think technically they can go over the 55,000. And I'm going to use 55,000 because I think they could dip into the Nicara budget, because I've seen them do that before in other years. But they shouldn't schedule more than the 55,000. But my point in the video a couple of days ago was, look, if they've scheduled 55,000, they can't schedule more. They shouldn't schedule more. And so, you know, we need to stop dreaming that they're going to issue 1,000 2NLs on Monday, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
That's
see
not going to
that.
happen.
I mean, listen, reading between the tea leaves in the government submission to us in our Husu case, they made it seem like maybe, I think the number they had was 1,200 total more.
That was on the weekend, last weekend.
Yeah.
They had 1,200 in mind. And then on the Monday and the Tuesday, they did 800. And then we got that declaration, right? I think it was on the Tuesday we got the declaration. So this last week, they did 2,000 interviews. They scheduled 2,000 interviews. That was the 1,200 plus, because they said at least 1,200. That was it.
And one of the things they did, unbelievably, it's just too much of a coincidence for me to think it wasn't related to our specific plaintiff list, is they took care of our last remaining Sydney client, our 2 clients from Nairobi, and our 1 client from Warsaw, who happened to be a Russian national. I don't know if that played into or not, but so now we're only left with a handful of people at posts, and Accra Addis making up the vast majority of them. Tashkent, if I'm saying that right, is probably the other one, and then it's a bunch of 2 in Ankara, and I think I'm missing one. I think Abu Dhabi is 1, and Riyadh. I think we have like 2. So that's it, right? And but you could tell from reading from what they were saying is like they were like, don't expect anyone else. That's how I read it. Like, they were like, this is, now we're fighting. Now this is it. And that doesn't surprise me, because I mean, I'm not gonna think they're gonna turn the lights on for a decent Accra at this point. I mean, that's probably expecting too much. I don't know what was going on at Tashkent, because that's where the out of order scheduling is really apparent. Because even at that post, they're doing well over, I think 50% of their issuances are DV.
Right.
That's like their game, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's their thing. Uzbekistan, right? DV. But how they're scheduling them, and scheduling is not a post issue, by the way. Scheduling is a KCC issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
The system really failed a lot of, at least my clients specifically there. So yeah, I mean, I hope, listen, I think I've heard it said, and I think it's even said in the government's pleadings in our case, where they dedicate resources to working through AP in the last 2 months. Yeah. I think the person,
I've seen that.
I think the person in Ankara said that specifically, maybe in Riyadh as well. And I hope that's true. I think the difficulty is if you've been in AP for 4 or 5 months, I don't know. I'm getting a little nervous because something's wrong. Right?
Well, here's the something wrong. They've scheduled all 55,000 visas for interview. They can't cancel those, right? So if you're scheduled for an interview, you have the right to turn up for your interview. And if you get approved, there's a visa for you. They shouldn't be letting you sit through an interview and then say, no, you can't have an interview, a visa, or they're all gone, right? So they have to, first of all, honor the scheduled interviews. And they've scheduled all 55,000. The only visas that will be left for closing AP cases will be refusals from August's interviews. And there's 15,000 interviews in August. So we would expect to have about 3,000 visas coming back from that. But there's 7,000 people on AP right now.
Yeah.
So there's going to be 3,000 visas, 7,000 people closing on AP. Some of them won't close ever; they'll just stay in AP forever.
Yeah.
But there's still going to be a shortage, right? And
Yeah.
they can't recycle the September refusals, which would be about 2,000, because there's no time to pass them back to the visa office and reschedule. The only reallocation they can do is within a post, right? So if a post had 100 cases and 10 were refused, they can take those 10 refusals and give them to AP cases from their own post, but
So,
only their own post.
so to save me perhaps 100 direct messages, what would you tell people who've been in AP for 2-3 months at this point?
2 or 3 months. Well, so I got an email from a lady called Sedi. She's an Iranian living in Greece, but she runs a YouTube channel, and lovely woman. She went into AP on March 1st, right? So she's had 5, or will have had 5 full months. I'm pretty sure she's going to clear AP this month, right? Because I've watched for years AP for Iranians taking about 5 months, 5 maybe 6 months at most. So someone who's an Iranian or on some sort of enhanced AP thing, non 5535, if they've only got 3 months of bake time, they're probably not going to get through in time. And if they do, if they get through in late September, there's probably not going to be visas for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they're in trouble 2 or 3 months. If it's a normal case that's in normal AP and they can get closed out in late August, early September, they have a better chance, right?
Yeah.
Depending on what's going on. In terms of 5535, somebody on one of the channels did a nice piece of graphing to show the sort of the average time or the closing times for 5535. And I think they were suggesting something like 8 weeks there seems to be a flurry. So I'm going to say people on 5535s can normally expect those to close out between 10 and 12 weeks at the most, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that if you're on 5535 times, type AP, if your 3 months runs out in August sometime, again, you've got a good chance. But if your 3 months runs out in mid to late September, you're probably not going to be lucky.
Yeah. That's the God's honest truth. I mean, that's more than we. I mean, people ask me all the time. I tell people, I mean, in the majority of my work is consular work, is obviously non-DV, and I've had people. I usually don't take cases unless they've been waiting 2 to 3 years.
Right.
I mean, non-immigrant visas are a little bit different, but immigrant visas, like I had this doctor who, her Iranian father, right? They let mom in, and dad had been there for 5 years on AP, just AP. And I'm telling you, that's not. I wish I would say like that's an extraordinary situation. It's not.
They just leave them to rot.
They totally. It's an abyss. It's an abyss.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's not just Iranians. I mean, it's others. I mean, I had one where sometimes I think they just make mistakes where they actually had a case where there's again, husband and wife team, but they let the wife sit there for forever and a day on AP, and it didn't make sense. So I think, again, it's the government. There's human error involved. There's understaffing. There's intent. There's bad actors. There's everything. It's a microcosm of the world. I think for DV specifically, though, man, I just don't know. I have a real problem with people sitting there and watching the clock run out. It drives me. It would drive. Obviously, my heart goes out to anyone who's actually in that situation. But it just shouldn't be that. It's just that because they should just tell the people. Or because here's the thing, and I've seen this happen too often, and it's something that is actually one of the few things that, unfortunately, there's a principle called consular non-reviewability where you clearly can't even challenge it. They should simply just deny them and give them. I mean, if they're gonna let the clock run out and that's their plan, they should just issue a final decision saying you're not gonna do it. But what they do is they say we're still working your case. We'll get back to you soon.
Right.
And that is where I have a problem, because we should be a little bit better than that and just tell them.
Yeah.
It kind of relates to my scheduling system. Like that is the one thing I can't stomach. Like and I don't mean it's as like, oh, well, be careful because that means that he doesn't. I just think that people should have it's a lottery, right? So the more certainty we can give people, though, and the less lottery like it becomes, the better.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I mean, AP is just now, and we forecasted this, you and I both did, because we knew the pilot program and all that was going to shift the burden out, late scheduling, and that was going to be a large refusal rate, and we've seen that, but now it's you work so damn hard to get the interview, and not to get a final decision is just
agreed.
It's just I just have a big problem with it. So
yeah, no, it sucks. It really does. I mean, you're right. The document procedure, the one good thing that it might have done is it might have filtered out some of the cases and let people know, look, you've got to provide a marriage certificate. And then people say, oh, holy cow, I never got legally married, right? So I don't have one of those, therefore I shouldn't go to the, So, but unfortunately, all of those cases, they're appearing for interviews, or they're just no-shows. But so they're part of the sort of the higher refusal rates that we see. But yeah, nightmare.
But don't even refuse. Just do. Refusal. We say refusal can mean two things. I just mean like deny. Like that's
yeah.
Like don't the people who are approvable and show up as refused, or even like or AP. Because keep in mind, and this is again, I'm going back. This is my nerdy lawyer hat. The regulations say you can do three things after an interview. Well, actually, two things. You can issue or refuse. So it's only two things. There's only two. So that's why when people say, well, why is, they only have the option. There's only two buttons that they can press.
There used to be three.
Yeah.
There used to be a status in SEAC, which was AP.
Yeah.
And, now they actually are pressing a third button, because you can tell the difference in SEAC between a final refusal and an AP refusal. But it's just, they are going the opposite direction from transparency, which is very frustrating in these day and age. And frankly, it leaves us with the position where Miles Morgan doesn't even know how his damn system works. And if he doesn't, then we're in big trouble, right?
Because I think the other thing, the other thing too is, every time there's two reasons why we can't get better. It's COVID and staffing. Like every single declaration is about staffing issues. And it's like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just make our lives so much harder, because then we're going to have this, secondary inspection, as I like to call it, where, we're going to just add layers of work on to do a DS5. There's a ton of information on that thing. I mean, I can understand why it would take someone in DC they have, time to check that whole inventory of information. What I would do, maybe, is give someone a yellow and then revoke. I mean, now that's tough because it's like catch and release, and I can understand maybe why they would do it. But honestly, if someone's a security threat, they know.
Right.
We've invested.
The 5535, if it's not an electronic form, that means some poor muppet somewhere has to be typing that data in. That's just stupid in this day and age, right? If it's an electronic form, because the DS260 was made electronic a few years ago. So, make it electronic. Then all of because what you're doing is you're looking at who does this person know, where have they traveled, what's their social media, right? Now, all of that data can instantly be checked these days in AI available systems that go around and sort of build up the little, what's the network of this person? Oh, this person knows that person. We're scared about that person, from a terrorism point of view. Okay, so this person might have the same problems. Or let's delve into their social media accounts. Oh, they've got followers, 5 of their followers are known terrorists. That's what they're looking for, let's be honest. Yeah. And so, okay, go do that electronically. Don't put a bloody manual step in that. And if you haven't bothered to put 5535 online, then pull it. Then don't have the bloody thing. Come back when you've done your homework correctly, right? And you've actually put that online. Otherwise, it's just pointless. The other thing is that for many years, actually, you'll see in some of those 2012, you referred to the 2012 lawsuits. There was big lawsuits in 2012 over the DV lottery because they screwed the whole thing up. And that's how I learned actually about DV lottery, was reading a lot of the declarations from that lawsuit. And when they did that, they were challenged. Why are you not deleting all of the information you get on DV lottery, right? And they said quite openly, well, it's a database. We like this database. We want to keep this database. And the 5535 is just an enhancement of the data collection method that is the DV lottery process, right? They get 20 million entries every year. They connect all the dots. They know who is who in all sorts of countries. It's great information for them. If you want to keep your country safe, which is what they say they want to do, it's great information.
Yeah, and and unfortunately, if they issue, even in my own suit, I think they've deprioritized, or certainly they admit that they prefer certain visas over others. I think that's wrong, but that's what they're doing. But again, if they hit that the highest issuance rate in 10 years or whatever, it's going to be tough to. Federal judge is not going to want to walk and step into that and say, well, you're wrong, or I need this. The system we have isn't perfect. I think that's the struggle, because a lot of people, still ask me, like, let's do a lawsuit. And I'm like, again, all the power to if you want to do it. But it's, I think it's really tricky. So that's really my take on what we have left. I really do. I mean, again, I think I have a lot of clients that, hopefully can get relief. I really do.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, fingers crossed for them.
Yeah, I think we have. I think we have the case for DV 2022 that is a case that isn't just about, pointing fingers. It's really about, hey, like, you really did this. You have a real issue here, beyond credibility, because that's the one thing. That's the one thing I have a problem with. I mean, if we got you in something and you made a mistake, I was always taught to admit it and move on, and they seem to have just
they've got the admit it bit.
Well, they kind of admitted it, but they think that's okay. Like, so we're fighting over whether you can. I mean, I don't know if it was just, I think it was, it's funny because we have this thing called discovery where you go out and you gather evidence, and they honestly, we have Miles who I met. I don't think he's a bad guy. I really don't.
No, exactly.
I think he's a bureaucrat. And has a job to do, and can't possibly know how everything works at his shop. I get it, but we have this thing in discovery, and you're supposed to prepare and come in, and you can't discover things after the discovery. That's what we have. The discovery was for us to get knowledge that you already knew, not for you to go out and discover on your own.
Oh, I should find that out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't.
Or at least have the common sense in the discovery, or in the when they're being asked, look, I don't know, I'm going to have to qualify that, I'm going to have to check that, because I'm not the programmer or whatever.
I'm almost like a bystander at this point, because their position before the judge is, we discovered this, so isn't that great? And I think the judge is more like, well, no, I hope, because it's like you were supposed to already know this. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So,
no, but to your point earlier, and I was asked this question about the UAO case, the Curtis's case. Someone said, what's going to happen with that? And I said, look, if they get, let's say they issue 54,000 visas, which is very, very likely at this point, right? What's the remedy? Right? I mean, so you got Miles Morgan in, basically, let's not call it a lie. Let's call it a very damning mistake where he didn't know what was going on, right? You've got him in that, bang, dead to rights, or whatever whatever the saying is. It's for sure he didn't know what was going on, or he misrepresented it. But so what, right? Can you do anything about that? From a Jesse's point of view,
Yeah.
I would expect with your 19 clients left, maybe you can do something, but that's also about the prioritization at some of those deadbeat embassies, right?
Yeah.
And so I can see you doing something, but UAO has over 1,000 cases still not scheduled. That's over 2,000 people. There's nothing
Yeah.
that can be done for those people if all the visas are issued.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly if there's all the visas are issued, there's no one can do anything. I mean, that's it. Game over. Shops closed. We've ran out of visas. No, for sure. I mean, I think I really hope that doesn't happen before my 19 get their day in court. I don't think I think if we get a decision in September, there'll be visas available to get relief. But relief should be coming. I don't know. I don't know a lot about what happened. I just know that there was a hearing that was supposed to happen. I don't even know the breakdown of where his clients are. If clients are at specific posts that are brazenly doing a tier 4 system that was previously found unlawful, I think that's an interesting thing for a judge to look at and perhaps say you better make a good faith effort to schedule people in September. And I don't care if you have to, whatever you have to do. Maybe that happens. I'm not so sure. I don't know. I think for unique, maybe to, I don't know. Again, I can't speak to all the cases, but for my case in particular, if I have the proof to show, hey, this person, if you were doing it the right way, would have been scheduled, and you went out of order, I think that person should get relief, right? I mean, that's a clear demonstration of a procedural injury. Like he was up. And right. But I also I think you can extend that though to the courage. I mean, I always focus on courage of my clients because they put their face and they put their name on the complaint. They have to deal with me. They have to deal with the court. And I also think that if we show that there was a regulatory violation all year, that they could perhaps get relief. I think between the skipping issue and the deprioritization I think I have 10 clients out of 19, maybe 11. I have to do my math again, who are at a decent ACRA. Yeah. I think from the combination, if I were to win on those two issues, those two posts and skipping, I think I would be made whole for everyone.
Right.
So that's kind of, my mission. I mean, that's the plan. Yeah. Again, I think sometimes people are like, one of the most frustrating things, I don't care if it's DV or not, but one of the things that it'll never change is if you don't win, you did nothing. Right. And that's the name of the game. It's like being a quarterback or, in like football, right? If you win 10 straight, you're great. If you lose one game or you throw an interception, you're the worst quarterback ever. And that's fine. That's the nature of the game. I think though, I do struggle with people who don't understand that, in fact, they think it's like, oh, you're changing positions. And I'm like, exactly. I'm changing positions because the facts are changing.
Right.
We can't get locked into a narrative about DV 2022 because of what we thought in February.
Right.
And I think that's, and again, I'm not saying there wasn't a lot of harm, and we use the analogy of people being thrown overboard. I think that probably happened. And I think it happened for sure at specific posts. They could never catch up. But I also think that, again, we have to deal with the facts we have in hand and make our case, and and a person who's DV23 is like, when are you doing DV23? I told him, I'm like, I don't understand what you're talking about. Like, that's not happening. And like,
it won't be necessary.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing about it is
DV23 is going to be much better, I think.
Well, I mean, I just said, listen, it's August of 2022. I go, I do not. It's the way lawyers. The people always, they like to be critical. We are public figures, I guess, to the extent I'm on YouTube and on Twitter or whatever. and maybe even yourself, I'm not out there soliciting. I don't want the DV system to be broken. I don't want the government to I don't want to litigate. I mean, I really don't. I tell people all the time, and this is maybe a good point for people to understand. By the time people have come to me in my normal work, things have gone really bad. Right? They don't want to call. You don't want to call me. You call me when really you have no other option, right?
Yeah.
I'm like the guy in Pulp Fiction. Ever seen the movie Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
When they call it the wolf? Yeah, or the cleaner, right? Yeah, that's because everything's been broken and they don't know where to turn. But that's what a litigator really should be. I feel like, I'm not out there, and I think a lot of times it's hard for people because people they think there's a magic wand and you get like a 2-0 or and a lot of times it's like, well, you have to wait. You have to go through the process. Like if we had gotten, the other thing is like with timing of the lawsuits where, you can't get a decision, in my opinion, on these facts until about now. Because there was enough evidence in March, April, and May that they were changing their behavior.
Yeah.
And if that means a decision now, because people are saying, well, aren't they going to say, that they've done great? And there's I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what they're going to say. But you know what? That's also reality as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So we can't run away from that. So
no. So quick thing, you must be tight on time. It's Sunday afternoon, so we won't go forever. But I do want to make clear from DV point of view, DV 2023 point of view, there are only 2 threats, right? One threat would be the reintroduction of the document procedure. That would be a problem, but I don't think it's coming back. Not for the time being, anyway. The second threat is for those individual embassies, such as ACRA, etc. So if you can clear up in DV 2023 cases that those embassies that have got the prioritization scheme, that they're still working on that, if you can highlight that and kill that, if that were to be killed, then that would be the other barrier removed for some people in 2023. Other than that, I don't think anyone in 2023 is going to need a lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, even through unsuccessful lawsuits, I mean, again, it doesn't help the clients and they don't care, but I think those that want to shape the program through litigation, it's kind of like my scheduling thing. I want to shape the program so there are actually standards in place so we know, like this good faith standard, I think, is one that sticks. I do think that even this law, everyone's lawsuits, all the lawsuits, I think we're going to be able to shape a little bit more about what is expected, because the government still, even in our lawsuit, the government's position is we do whatever we want and no one can tell us differently. And if you don't like it, the hell with you.
Right.
Basically, that's kind of what their position is, and that's the State Department's position. And I understand that because I'm going down to D.C. to argue for 2020 in a month, and that's a position. Now, here's the thing, and I've told myself this, when I was thinking, I'm starting to plan that argument. I'm actually thinking about using the numbers from this year to show how much harm was done to those 2020 and 2021 folks. I don't represent the 21 folks, but I mean to show that we don't even have the perfect system in place yet, far from it. But for them to come in here and say it was okay, or there's different thorny legal arguments, but essentially the numbers don't lie, right? 2020, 2021, because of policies at the presidential level and State Department level, decimated the program.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, your facts are going to make the law, right?
Yeah.
And so just to tie a ribbon on, DV, we have 2020, 2021. I'm 2020. That's not going to be our case, but in a lot of ways, 2022 and perhaps 2023 are going to show our judges that there really was something catastrophic to that program year.
Oh, absolutely. And I think to your earlier point about litigation shaping the course, it absolutely has, because there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the December 9th decision to remove to introduce the pilot program, remove the document procedure, that was based on the pressure they were feeling from the 2020 and 2021 cases. And then when they basically said to you back in sort of January, February time, or whatever, look, we can, if we issue 20, 25,000, there's nothing stopping us. There's no statute. They would say there's no statute that says we have to do the 55. Well, they turned on a dime, and they've gone and they've worked very hard to try and issue the 55. 55K. So so that is the shaping of the outcome.
And they'll never admit it. And they'll never admit it. But I remember, we had this article in Forbes, and I was pinging people and trying to do whatever things I could do. I mean, someone made a phone call to someone.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it was all designed that they were going to ramp up, but they really just, it took off. I mean, I think it surprised both of us at how much they were starting to do.
What they did 15,000 people scheduled in August, completely unheard of. Has never happened before, that number. 10,000 in September, completely nuts. I mean, I didn't think in August, when I saw the scheduling in August, I didn't think they were going to schedule very many at all in September. But to schedule another 10,000 is just amazing.
I mean, what was that number that one day in Kathmandu? Was like 900?
Yeah, 980.
I mean, that was insane, because they were. If you read the complaint, they were at 0, and I was all about like those sons, the sons of bitches out there in Nepal. They're not doing anything. These people are, and I was highlighting it. I'm like, I remember it was Cairo, Nepal, Sydney, Addis and Accra. I'm like out there. Johannesburg was another one. I'm like, these, we had our list, right?
It makes a mockery when they say, oh yeah, but it takes a long time to do all this work, and the embassy can't handle it. And then they turn around and schedule nearly 1,000 people 1,000 cases, 2,000 people in one day, at an embassy, and for 1 month. It's like, okay, so that whole bullshit you gave us about it's not possible. Then it's complete nonsense. Because Chuck used to drive me a little bit crazy. He wouldn't really listen to some of the things, and he would say things like, "Well, they could do all this in a week if they had to." Or in a month or whatever he said. And I kept saying, no, Chuck, it's not really quite that. Well, actually, he's right. They can. If they can do 1,000 bloody interviews in Kathmandu in 1 month, then they can fix this whole problem in no time. They've done 25,000 interviews in 2 months.
Yeah,
right?
and I mean
that's what they're doing. So
I need 19. I hope. Listen, I don't mean to sound selfish. I don't mean to sound selfish like that, but like I've made. I've lived. I mean, I don't know if it was a curse or what, but when I started this own little plaintiff Telegram chat, and I've lived with I feel like I live with my clients, and just in this case, I definitely do not do this for other people. I would go crazy, but I've done it for the TV plaintiffs just because of everything that changes, the worldwide, people are everywhere, and I will say one of the benefits though is a lot of our own plaintiffs were learning tips and maybe even where to transfer and helping each other. So it's been a benefit, but it's really hard because obviously there's a lot of emotions involved. It's tough because I really do. It's not like I don't want for them to win. I have to be careful what I say sometimes because I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah. Well, hey, we need to maybe do more of these. Maybe we'll do like a pre-Gomez. I'll
be listening in that day. Are you going to Washington that day?
Yeah. I'm going to take the baton for our team and try to.
Is there a public viewing gallery in the court?
I don't know. Oh yeah,
I might go watch.
You should
have a little flag,
It's gonna be. I mean, it's gonna have. It's literally gonna. I think Curtis will definitely be there. I think Chuck Cook will be there. A lot of the
because Raphael will be there. He'll probably punch you in the nose.
Raphael will definitely be there. Nicolette Glazer will be there. So we again, there's a lot on the line. There's a lot on the line, and I hope we obviously don't know who the judges are, but I'm really lucky. I mean, you want to talk about an all-star, but the team that worked on Gomez are some of the best attorneys. They're the attorneys that I want to be when I grow up. So I'm just literally I'm the guy who's like, they hand them like the water and they're like, don't screw it up. Like, just get it to the other side, carry it over. So
I'm not the water boy, but I'm carrying the water for the water boy, just so he can deliver it.
I mean, no, but I mean, there's so much. I mean, we got 9. I mean, just for our little thing, it's like there's 9,095. We need those. Those are precious items. So we'll see.
Yeah, fingers crossed. All right, Jesse, I appreciate your time.
Right. Enjoy your Sunday.
Yeah, and to the people that ask questions, I'm sorry, I did do a live this morning. I answered a lot of questions. They're probably similar questions, so go back and have a look at that live, and you'll probably get most of your answers. But I'll come online again the next few days. But thanks very much, Jesse. Thanks for all your time, and I really enjoyed catching up.
Enjoy it. We'll be in touch. All right.
All right. Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye-bye.